This video is going to be a really quick one, going over what are the best secondary weapons to use inside Warzone after the Season 3 Reloaded update. Starting off, as always, we've got our TTK spreadsheet right here with all the secondary pistols. And this is based on chest shots only at 250 HP. Now, once we do get the sim.gg stats, we'll give you a mix shot location as well. But when it comes to the standard TTK numbers, we're mainly focusing on this close range. You should not be using a pistol even in the 2nd to 3rd damage range. It just depends on how quickly it drops off, where you will be experiencing some of these TTK numbers right here. But the 3rd damage range, you should not be using your secondary pistol for that whatsoever. Now, when it comes to the fastest possible TTK at close range, you'll be surprised to know that the X12 Akimbo pistols are still the best. At 280 milliseconds is absolutely insane, but obviously it's not a super versatile gun, so I mean, you're pretty much using it at point blank range, similar to a shotgun. Then we've got the standard Deagle pistols in Akimbo, which again, kind of hard to use, to be honest, because they fire pretty slow. Then we do have the fully automatic Deagles, which are the new pistols in the game, which do have an insanely fast TTK, and considering they're a bit easier to use, this is the way I would go. Then we've got the X13 Duo Akimbo pistols, which is the full auto pistol that was in the start of the game. Then we've got the P890s, the Basilisk in the snake shot form. This is a single one. If you get the Akimbo version, you can get a pretty much instant TTK or instant kill if you fire both guns at the same time. But I wanted to show what a single fire looks like now as well. Lastly, we've got the FTAC Siege, which has the slowest possible TTK on this list. Now, you're probably going to think, oh, that's pretty slow, but it's actually not. If you compare it to a gun like the MINIBAK SMG, which is a very popular gun and it's kind of super low recoil, similar to the FTAC Siege, then you're actually getting a 644 millisecond TTK with the MINIBAK, and it's only 6 milliseconds slower, which is not noticeable at all, especially in-game, and if you land all your shots anyway. So you will be better off probably with this weapon instead, as it's a secondary option. You can take an extra perk in your loadout slot. So what I forgot to add to this list as well actually was the impact point, which is basically the X13 with the special barrel on it, and this gives you actually a faster TTK than the FTAC Siege at close range, but when it gets to the longer distances it doesn't perform quite as well. But it's still another good option, especially if you do like having an SMG style weapon, and it is going to give you a slightly faster time to kill. Moving on into some quick builds now, starting off with the X12 pistol. This is the standard build, what I would recommend. I've not put any tuning on here because it's going to take far too long to get through. The 33 round mags, in my opinion, are more than enough, but if you do feel like you need the 50, then by all means you could try that, but I think it slows you down way too much. To be honest, even the 24 round mags, because you do have two weapons side by side, can also be enough as well, so both are solid choices. You do need the lightning fire on here as well to get that faster TTK, because it's going to give you a faster fire rate. And then when it comes to suppressor, you can either use this suppressor, which is the best option, or you could choose a barrel if you want instead, which is going to give you better movement speed or better recoil control. You can take your pick there. When it comes to hip firing with this gun, it's super accurate, as you can see here. Even at the 2nd range, you can actually land shots pretty easily, but you need to make sure your trigger finger is pretty good. And if you've got TAQ sprint on, these kind of guns are not usually the best. You're usually wanting to go for something fully automatic, and that is why this is probably not one of the better options, even though it's got one of the fastest possible TTKs. Next up, we've got the GS Manga, which is the Deagle pistol that's fully automatic. And again, you do want to use Akimbo, the largest mags. Overpressured, because it's the only spare attachment you might as well use, because it does help with target flinch. The rest don't really help anything too much at all, in my opinion. Then we are using the X9 foregrip, which helps with hip fire accuracy. And we are using the barrel that helps with vertical recoil control, because that's super important, even when you're hip firing. The only way to use this gun is in Akimbo, and as you can see here, the TTKs will be absolutely insane, and that's because they are. But when you're trying to land shots at this further distance compared to the X12s, it's kind of hard to land your shots unless you're barrel stuffing point blank range, so keep that in mind when you're going to pick these guns. Next up, we've got the X13 auto pistols, and again, you want the Akimbo attachment. You can use the 50 round mags for these if you really want to, because obviously they're fully automatic, so you run out of ammo a bit quicker, but that's going to come down to personal preference there if you want a bit less movement. And then when it comes to barrels, again, you've got a movement speed barrel, which is the one I've selected here, or you could choose the recoil control. You cannot use the impact point, unfortunately. And then I am using the steel fire suppressor, but again, you don't really need to have that on there either. You can just go for max kind of movement if you really want to. Now, when it comes to the hipfire reticle, it's not quite as accurate as the X12s, but it's definitely more accurate than those Deagle pistols. Now, as you can see here, you run through ammo really quickly with this, and even landing your shots at this kind of further distance here, it's kind of difficult, to be honest. But if you're point blank range, then it's not too bad, but the TTKs are not the best with these pistols compared to some of the others. Next up, we've got the FTAC Siege, which is my favourite secondary in the game right now because it's the closest thing to an SMG and it performs just as good as the MINIBAK, so it's worthwhile taking as a secondary choice. For the barrel, you do want to use the STFU, which is a funny barrel name, but also it's going to give you sound suppression, damage range, and bullet velocity. A lot of benefits there. You don't really need recoil control with this because it's actually super easy to use without even any tuning, but once you get tuning, you can do it towards recoil control. Aim down sight speed and aiming stability is what I've taken with the laser, but you can take a hipfire one instead. When it comes to the stock, the wire stock's the best choice because it's going to help with strafing speed, so make sure you choose that one. And then when it comes to rear grip, you can either choose the sprint to fire one, or you can choose the recoil control one. Both are solid choices depending on what you prefer. And then the 50 round drum is more than enough, but you can go for the 72 if you really need it. But I think the 50 round drum is going to be the best choice here. So like I said, this is the closest gun to an SMG. The iron sights are pretty clean on this too. Recoil is super low and the fire rate is absolutely insane. So a lot of really good things going for it. Even though the TTKs are not the best, it's still going to be the most versatile gun in that secondary slot. So it's worthwhile using. If you want to run a riot shield, then this is probably the gun you're going to run your riot shield with because, like I said, it's the most versatile weapon on the list. And as you can see, the strafing speeds, besides the stupid reload animation, are actually pretty decent as well. Another really good choice is the X13 Auto in a single fire variant with the impact point barrel. It's going to feel more like an SMG. It has a slightly faster TTK at close range. The only issue is that the movement speeds is not quite as good as the FTAC Siege. This is the way you want to build it, but you could build it out for a little bit more movement if you remove the suppressor and put on the rear grip that helps with sprint to fire speed. But overall, this is the way you want to build it, and then obviously you want to tune it as well so you get max speed out of this gun too. When it comes to control at range, it's actually pretty easy to control as well. It feels kind of similar to an MP7 in a way. So it is super easy to control. Iron sights are clean as well. So overall, it's a solid choice. You just do need to build it and tune it more towards movement speed. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, and thank you very much for watching.